Hey guys, you're watching Let's Talk About Prepping. I'm Tyler, your host, and in this video, we're going to talk about why I think that a lot of prepper groups are going to turn into communisms and dictatorships like China and North Korea because of the plans that preppers, including prepper channel creators, have for how to run their group in severe grid down and SHTF. And why I think that those plans are really just not going to work for most situations in the first place, and why a lot of preppers just aren't going to be very good leaders. So, most preppers that are watching my channel are probably going to be American, but plenty of you are European. Most of us are Westerners, and Westerners are used to self-determination, getting to choose what to do with their resources, with their things. But most prepper channels and a lot of people in their comments make it pretty clear that they plan on being a benevolent dictator. And in a lot of really intense SHTF situations, executive decision making is important. And in a lot of these situations, a person who's on top of it cannot trust a lot of the other people who will want to be making decisions. So I can see where they're coming from. And I do believe that it will be necessary, if you are the best suited person to lead your group, to assert dominance. I think this will be necessary for a lot of people, because there are going to be people there are going to be preppers who have police officers in their family, perhaps even people who have some FEMA training but have not spent any time in the prepping community really looking at what we talk about here and some of the things that are discussed outside of just how FEMA plans to respond to things. There are people with job descriptions or just positions in life who will want to have a position of authority in the group that they're in, especially when life-altering decisions are being made at a group level. And I think that everybody will want to have some say in life and death decisions, and especially in just everyday decisions that have to do with their time, their energy, their resources, and their family. So, no matter what, even if you have a good reason for needing to be the top-down leader of your group, you're going to have your job cut out for you, getting Americans to understand why it's necessary to take orders outside of the job place. Lots of Americans are just going to have problems taking orders because they're the ones who gives the orders in the job place. So, why do I think that a lot of prepper groups that are maybe going to be led by some of you, definitely by a lot of people in the prepping community who I see comment on other videos, why those groups I think are going to become dictatorships and communisms? Well, for one thing, communism is sort of a natural tribal thing. Not actual communism like Marxism or Stalinism or things like that. I'm talking about a commune. A commune is what most prepper groups sort of envision themselves becoming, like a group of people all living on a bunch of farmsteads that have become one big compound. But commune sounds actually a lot more accurate, because you're going to be a bunch of dirty hippies living off of gardens and stuff like that, and sharing things in equal. I mean, you can call it barter, but if every morning everybody just picks what they can and goes around and shares it and knows that they'll be able to get something from someone else, and you all just sort of maybe keep a loose tally of it, but in general it's more just a matter of everybody helping each other out, that's communism. That is grassroots communism, voluntary, whatever you want to call it, natural. Everybody's sharing in a community. So before I get everybody saying that I'm the communist prepper, I'm not. I strongly abhor all the things that communism as a political entity always brings about. But a lot of people need to realize that that's sort of just what you are if you're in a family group. My car, my personal car that I drive, was given to me free, more or less, because I more or less gave my mini home to the family, which is on family property, and which I'm not prepared to move off of family property. And so in the meantime, people are using it. I may or may not have it as my private property again. I likely will, but that's just the way that it works when you're in a family that shares resources in common. You might give freely to your aunt and uncle and cousins for years, and others might give freely to you, and it just all goes about. And in a good, healthy mag group, that's pretty much the way that it should be. And I'm jealous of people who have groups of different nuclear families that share that kind of fluidity within their group. But a lot of people are planning on instituting that, on essentially rounding up all the people who show up at their house and saying, listen, I'm the prepper, I have the food, you're all going to do what I say. And a lot of them don't have the prepared responses for how to deal with Americans who don't want to be treated that way. And I think that what this is going to end up doing is causing this downward spiral where you're not able to maintain respect, happiness, any of the things that are necessary for people to cooperate, for people to work in a cooperative society. I think that a lot of groups with people at their head who plan on being benevolent dictators are going to end up just being general dictatorships. I think that rather than having a natural communism, you're going to have an enforced socialism. If the person who had the most, who was the most preppery beforehand, ends up becoming the leader and essentially dictating how things will be rationed because theirs is the one stash that will be taken the most out of, you're going to end up with one person dictating how those things will be rationed. And maybe that person will be perfectly fair and even. But it really comes into asking the question of, if that person isn't the most obese person there, will they take into consideration that person wanting more food or needing more food or what have you? Or will the rations all be set by an arbitrary standard? It really raises the question of if a group can be led by a Congress of representatives from each family group or each political viewpoint, and really what situation you're talking about. Is it a SHTF or a basic grid down? In a lot of situations, there won't even be a group for you to be the leader of because everybody's still just going to be living at their houses because it's just the Great Depression #2, and there's really no point to everybody gathering together on a farmstead. How are you going to lead a group if everybody just stays at their house and meets up to help work together or whatever, but no one is reliant enough on anybody else to give each other orders? You really have to think about all the different situations that we might find ourselves in and ask yourself if the things that you fantasize about, like I'll become more important when these situations happen, are really likely. Because in a lot of situations, you're not going to become the leader of anybody else. Or if you do, it's going to be highly contested. And you need to be prepared to be able to defend your position without alienating parts of your group and sowing the seeds for further dissension later in the future. And these are things that I don't really see as part of the conversation. People just sort of, I see videos where they talk about how your group will be structured in SHTF. And while they talk about, well, this is just how it's going to have to be, they don't really get into how that's going to be implemented, how you're going to defend your stance as the chief when other people have opinions. And maybe the channel creators that are making the videos do have a plan for that. Maybe they will be quite good at it. But I don't see a lot of videos explaining how to be the good leader of a prepper group, how to properly take into account everybody's opinion. Because it's definitely possible for a chief or a king or any kind of executive leader to properly take into account all of the different opinions of those below him. But you really have to know how to set up that hierarchy, how to really have everybody represented. Because if you're not doing some kind of representative leadership, you're going to end up with a lot of unhappy people and tanking the efficiency of your group, maybe even facing mutiny. Because let's face it, when life and death is on the table, people are not, you would not, no rational person would not want a say at the table. So if you really think that you're going to be in the position to be leading people in life and death situations, you really need to consider how you would want to be led if your house burnt down and you ended up in somebody else's group with no way to prove your credentials or experience or why you should be the leader, with nothing to bring to the table. What kind of group would you want to be in? You don't need to necessarily format your group to cater to the least valuable person, but you are going to have to consider those people if you want to be the good leader of a group. And if you're not a good leader of a group in high stakes situations, you're quickly going to lead your group into something very ugly. That's not going to look unlike your group's version of communist China or North Korea. You're going to have starving, unhappy people living under rules that don't make sense. Maybe not as brainwashed as them, but if they're unhappy with you, that's not a very good thing either. So, just a few thoughts. I'm definitely going to be talking more about group dynamics for in the emergency, because I think that's really important. I think it doesn't really get talked enough about just how important the dynamics of a group is going to be in these high stress situations, and how everything is going to hinge on the interactions that people have. So anyways, I hope that was some interesting thoughts. Hope you're all doing well out there. Everybody stay safe.